Yo, what's going on, guys? It is Boy Nick here, back again with a brand new video today. I'm continuing my series in which I review every single Marvel Cinematic Universe film up to release of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Today we're going to be reviewing the 5th film in Phase 2, Avengers: Age of Ultron. The Avengers: Age of Ultron once again was directed by Joss Whedon and has pretty much all of our returning cast from RDJ, Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, Scarlett Johansson, Mark Ruffalo, Jeremy Renner. All of them still do a great job. They're just as good this time as they were the first time. We also have the addition this time of Don Cheadle as Rhodey or War Machine. He's a nice little addition to have in there. He's great in the scenes and stuff. It's cool to see him acknowledged as one of the Avengers, and considering he's like one of the OG Marvel sidekicks. We also have some interesting new characters with Aaron Taylor Johnson as Pietro Maximoff and Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda Maximoff. Now in this movie, they're a little bit bland in this movie, but I feel like they do get a little bit more compelling down the road. No spoilers, of course, but it is an interesting little introduction to them. We also get introduced to Paul Bettany as Vision. Now, Paul Bettany, in my personal opinion, is just awesome as Vision. I really think that they nailed the casting on him. He's so interesting of a character, but he's also just very charming, and I just feel like Paul Bettany just does this role so well, and I think he's an interesting character. Again, I'm not gonna go too deep in these characters because it's really just a minor introduction to them, but they're great in the movie, is all I'm trying to say. Oh yeah, and also the makeup for Vision is cool. It's cool to see an android robot vibranium looking figure without using a whole bunch of CGI. They use more practical stuff, and it looks great on him. James Spader also does a whole lot of great voice acting as Ultron. Now, Ultron's not my favorite villain, but I think James Spader does a great job doing the voice acting for him. I think he's funny. I think he's scary at the same time. I think the effects for Ultron also look really great. The action sequences in this movie are very exciting. They look great. I enjoy watching them. They really do make you excited to watch them. I think they're well choreographed. I don't think it's as good as the fight scenes and the action sequences in the first Avengers, but it is still very fun to watch, obviously, and it's not really a whole lot to complain about. There are some moments where I thought, okay, the effects seem a bit iffy there, but for the most part, I think the effects in this movie have held up pretty well. I think the stunt work is also very well done. I think it may have actually improved a little bit over the first Avengers. There wasn't too much stunt work in that movie. Well, there kind of was, but I know this one, the stunt work just seems, it just seems like they put more into it, I guess. I don't know, I just think that it looks really good in this movie. I gotta give them credit for that. Of course, Alan Silvestri's score is phenomenal as always. The Avengers is one of the most iconic scores of the last 10 years, of course. It's always going to be great. It's never not going to be good in the movie. All these components are the positives of Age of Ultron. I am going to get into the negatives because unfortunately there are some, but it's still a very fun movie that I recommend checking out if you haven't already. So for one of my flaws I have, although the story is compelling, the first act rushes through the plots and makes it a little bit harder to appreciate it, and that is true. When I was watching this the other night, I was watching it, I was saying to myself, okay, that's a compelling story, but they kind of just rushed through it, and I feel like I didn't get enough time to get emotionally invested in it, so whenever we get to the emotional payoff at the end, I didn't really care for it. Or I shouldn't say I didn't care for it, I just didn't find myself as emotionally invested as I wanted to, but it's still, still a very fun movie. It's just I feel like that they maybe not rushed through it so quickly, I would have found it a little bit more emotionally compelling. I think had it been rewritten a little bit, it would have been a lot better. I also kind of feel like the first act is a bit messy. I feel like it doesn't do a good enough job of explaining why the Avengers are back together, because really, we see where they are in Iron Man 3 and Thor the Dark World and Captain America the Winter Soldier, and then we just see them back together again in the Age of Ultron without any real explanation about why they're back together, and then it's not until they're back together that was when the conflict arises, and the conflict's an accident. It's not really an accident, if you've seen the movie, you know what I mean. I just feel like it needed to do a better job explaining why they're all back together again, considering the Avengers is an initiative and they're supposed to be there whenever they have a duty there. So I just wish they would have done a little bit of a better job explaining why they're back together instead of just, all right, we had them go off and do their own separate thing, now they're back together. Why are they back together? We don't know. I just feel like they could have done that a little bit better. I feel like the first act is a bit messy with that. I also kind of think that this is also a big part of the first act, but I also kind of feel like this movie, although it has some great jokes, some of the jokes didn't land for me, and especially in the first act, I felt like there wasn't enough space between some of the jokes for good enough comedic timing. There's some jokes, especially a lot in the first act, where you'll hear it and then you'll hear it again a few minutes later, but I don't feel like there's enough time to create good comedic time between it, so it doesn't entirely stick the landing for me. I thought it could have been a little bit better. I just feel like the first act of this movie is kind of the weakest act, because it kind of just rushes through things and it doesn't give you enough time to get emotionally invested in everything. But everything after the first act, I think, is significantly improved. I just wish that they would have tried a little bit harder with the first act, especially even with the humor. I think the humor should have been a little bit better in this movie, although there is still some great humor in it. And also, because the first act isn't as well crafted as it should have been, it is noticeably, the movie is noticeably lower in quality than the first Avengers. I will say, though, it is still very fun. I do have some frustration watching Age of Ultron because I'm they should have ironed that out a little bit better, but at the end of the day, it's an Avengers movie, and it's one that you have a lot of fun when you watch. So I can't complain about having fun with the movie. So take with that what you will. And also, kind of one other thing I want to mention, which I know a lot of people are bothered by, and it kind of bothers me too. Two things I want to mention real quick. So there's like this whole side plot line with. I'm going to go into spoilers a little bit, and I don't think I need to give a warning for that because this movie is 7 years old. But spoiler warning just in case. There's like one plot, like minor plot line where it's like Banner and Romanoff having like a little relationship there, and it just feels so out of nowhere. I mean, I know it is supposed to like progress the characters a little bit, but it's so out of nowhere, and it just doesn't feel right. I feel like it's like we'd never seen them be interested in each other before, so it just felt very out of place to have that there. I mean, I can appreciate the kind of progression they were going for. I just feel like it just wasn't executed very well. I felt like they should, if they were going to do that, they should have had it been teased a little bit earlier, but I don't know. That's just one thing I'm not part of. And then like one other thing I kind of was hesitating talking about, since this is usually a pretty family-friendly channel, but I will talk about it because I feel like it's a flaw that most people agree with me on, and it's just one that bothers me a little bit. There's one thing that Joss Whedon put in here that I'm not a fan of, where whenever Ultron is attacking in the apartment, they jump over the bar, Banner and Black Widow, and Banner falls into Black Widow's breasts. And it is done as like a joke, and like he says sorry and all that stuff. It's just, I don't know what Joss Whedon was thinking when he put that in there. It kind of just felt like dumb, like sexual innuendo humor just for the sake of it. Like it didn't do anything for the story. It just felt like he put it in there for the sake of putting it in there. And I didn't find it funny. I just found it like off-putting, and like it took me out of the thing. Like I'm not against like crude humor or anything. It's just it felt so out of place, like it didn't need to be in there. So I kind of feel like that's I mean, I can overlook it when I think about Age of Ultron as a movie. That one thing in there, it's like, was that really necessary? I don't think so, but that's just me. I will say though, even though Avengers Age of Ultron is a little bit disappointing compared to the first one, I definitely think that it's got some flaws. I will say it is a fun movie. I'm going to give it an overall rating of an 8.7 out of 10. It's very entertaining despite some frustrations I have, and I'm going to give it an overall grade of an A-. I was going to give it a B+, and I think technically it is kind of a B+, but at the end of the day, I have a lot of fun with this movie. I can't complain about that, so I think an A- is an appropriate grade. So that was my review of Avengers Age of Ultron. Please tune in just a few more days for my review of the next movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Ant-Man. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get notified about latest videos. Leave a comment down below. And yeah, that's been it. Peace.